my name is CLEO. Welcome back to my channel. If you can't tell, I'm literally sweating my freaking butt off. I really miscalculated this. I did not realize it would be so hot today. It's literally like 85 degrees Fahrenheit. My eczema is flaring. My hair is flattening as we speak, which can only mean one thing. It is officially the summertime here in New York, which also means it's moving season. If you guys didn't know, in New York, I would say like end of May to the end of August is the peak moving season. There are a lot of interns coming in, people graduating from college, and so a lot of people just end up being stuck on summer cycle. And so I figured now would be the best time to do an updated tips for moving / apartment hunting here in New York City. Also, I picked this park because like low-key, look at that. Look at it's giving skyline, it's giving city, it's giving vibes, but I did sweat a lot commuting here. So sorry. My first tip always for people that are completely new to apartment hunting in New York City is to use StreetEasy. StreetEasy is the website / app that literally everyone uses to look for apartments. I actually use the app more than the website, but both are good. I feel like it's nice to just keep scrolling and seeing what there is, but this is literally where everyone finds open listings, so where you'll contact your broker for viewing. And once you find an apartment you like, you literally just click contact broker, and I recommend checking all your modes of communication because they'll text you, they'll email you, sometimes I've gotten a WhatsApp, and I didn't realize it would WhatsApp me, so I totally missed their message. So I would definitely recommend making sure you check all your modes of communication, and New York brokers are usually very responsive, so they'll usually hit you up like a day or even a few hours, so things do move quickly, and StreetEasy is your best friend. And a sub tip is there's an option to check broker's fee or not. In New York, basically it's like a 13 to 15% broker's fee that you have to pay your broker just for literally unlocking the freaking door, even though you found the apartment yourself. And so it's not a must. There are a bunch of apartments that don't have it. It does limit the pool of apartments that you can look at, but personally for me, out of principle, I just cannot be bothered / be caught paying a broker's fee because it just feels wrong. It feels wrong. They went away briefly during COVID to try to entice people to still rent apartments, but they came back with a freaking vengeance. So I always make sure to check this box to make sure that any apartment I'm looking at doesn't have a broker's fee, but to each their own. If you're okay with it, it definitely opens up the amount of options that you have. And my next tip is for moving in general. I've moved around 4 times. First 3 times I did it by myself, and let's just say it was a struggle. I literally, I was like just trying to like make multiple subway trips with my things. I had to bum a ride from my roommate's hinge date that happened to have a car. Shout out to him. He literally helped me with my move. Without him, where would I be? I don't know. But if you don't want to bum a ride from your roommate's hinge date, I would recommend using a moving company. It literally does save so much time and energy and like helps reduce your stress and headache, which, to be honest, priceless. And so my favorite moving company that I've used before is Piece of Cake Moving. It's also very popular. I feel like basically everyone uses it. If you're around in the summertime, you'll literally see their pink trucks everywhere. And I'm happy to say I've partnered with them to give you guys a 10% discount code. So you can use my code CLEO, CLEO, for 10% off on your short distance moves and 5% off on long distance moves. And I honestly cannot recommend them enough. It saved me so much time and headache last year with my move, and it was just night and day compared to when me having to do it myself, like coming up with the stress of like trying to figure out how to lug all my things from point A to point B. So that's my other tip, is to not try to do everything yourself, because honestly in New York, moving is a whole nother beast. Like if you don't have an elevator, like you have to lug things up a walk up, the streets are crowded and scary. It's like, how do you parallel park your U-Haul in the middle of Midtown Manhattan? But you don't have to think about any of that if you hire a moving company. So yes, that is my other tip. But again, my discount code is CLEO. It never expires, so you can literally use it anytime. If you're not moving now, anytime in the future, you can still use it. I'll also include a link in my description box if you want 10% off. It was at this point that it got extremely windy, and turns out I'm a complete dunce, and I literally forgot to plug in my wireless mic this entire time, so it did not filter out any of the wind noise.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
So I'm just gonna do a little voiceover to talk about what I was saying in this clip, which honestly depresses me because I was so excited about using the mic. Anyways, basically I was saying, as I mentioned before, the end of May to the end of August is peak moving season, and so that means there's much more selection, but there's also much more competition, and rent prices are slightly higher. If you try to apartment hunt off peak season, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because you have much less selection, but you also have much less competition, and the rent is slightly lower. So if you're not pressed for time and you could move outside of this peak summer season, then I would recommend it just because it's a little bit less stressful and also your rent could be a little bit lower. And what I'm yapping about here, under extremely windy conditions for some reason, I don't know why I did this to myself, is I will ask for an 18-month lease instead of a 12-month lease if I really like the apartment, just to try to get out of being stuck on the summer cycle every single year. And sometimes the landlords do not go for that because they are effed up. They are greedy, but you know what they say, closed mouths don't get fed, so it doesn't hurt to ask. I would say like about a month before you can start scheduling viewings. Definitely if you're looking for like a studio versus like a 2-bed, because 2-beds go slower because there's 2 people involved in the decision making, but studios and 1-bedrooms, they get snapped up so freaking fast. And so sometimes you gotta have a lot of viewings in the pipeline, like even a month ahead in order to get something. So yeah, I would keep that in mind. Sometimes you can look for apartments that are available immediately, which means they've been on the market for some time, it's already cleared out, in which case those apartments you can literally apply and sign within a matter of like a day or 2. Like you look at it the next day, you have your keys. But there's also other units that are like available on the 15th or the 1st of the month, and so those places you have to wait a little bit. But yeah, the turnaround can be so fast in terms of from when you view to when you apply and ultimately get it. Like it's just a matter of finding an available unit, which is why I suggest maybe starting like a month for your move-in date just to give yourself some buffer time. But honestly, I've done it in the past where I landed in New York and 1 week later I'm in my new place. And in terms of actually apartment hunting yourself, if you've never been in New York before, I would recommend having a few neighborhoods in mind that you want to move into, and then try to spend some time there and exploring and walking around to see if you can actually envision yourself living there. Because trust me, things and vibes can be so different from when you see it on Google Maps or even on YouTube videos compared to actually being in the physical neighborhood. And yeah, so if you have time, I would try to spend some time there. For example, last year when I was apartment hunting, I was considering living like pretty far, like maybe in Woodside, Queens, and I had never been there before. And so when I apartment hunted, I actually stayed in the neighborhood after my viewing just to walk around, try to map myself to the nearest grocery store, try to like envision what my day-to-day life would be. Because yeah, I mean, like I want to cook a lot, like how do I feel about this grocery store and what they have, and like walking around to see like, oh, could this be my everyday matcha spot? They didn't have matcha, by the way, which also, you know, helped contribute to my decision making. But yeah, I think it's really helpful if you have time to try to walk around and explore the area, even just a little bit, like before or after your apartment viewing. And my next tip is, once you meet with your broker, I would definitely ask them if there's any other units that they could show you, because a lot of times a broker will reach out for the specific listing that you requested, but they have like a ton of other units in other buildings or even within the same building that they also are in charge of showing. And that's actually how I found my current apartment. I wasn't even looking at that specific unit, it's just I was at one viewing and then I was like,
I don't like any of these. Do you happen to have anything else that you could show me?
I was so desperate, and thankfully I asked because she was like, oh, I actually do. And she ended up bringing me to like a completely different building that had 2 units available, and I ended up getting one of them. And I would also say it's very helpful to come in with a mental list of your negotiables and your non-negotiables when looking for an apartment, because unfortunately, more oftentimes than not, there are certain things that you might have to compromise on, especially if you're pressed for time. If you're not pressed for time and not pressed for money, obviously you can definitely find a place with everything that you want, but unfortunately that's not usually the case. So I would make sure you know like what you're willing to let go versus what you definitely need to have. For example, is it rent? Are you really tight on budget? For amenities, like do you need laundry in the building, in unit, whatever? Like do you have to have an elevator? Yes or no? Things like that, just so you know what you're willing to give up versus not, so they can help speed up your decision making. For me, for example, in my current apartment, I really wanted natural light, but unfortunately my apartment has the worst lighting of all time. But after a while, I just had to realize that's just something I have to let go because it had everything else that I was looking for, and also I was pressed for time. And so yeah, I was like, fine, it's okay, no laundry in unit, and like the lighting is atrocious, and honestly it's a little loud, but those were kind of things I just was willing to overlook for all the other things, which is like had a dishwasher, all the appliances were new, the bathroom was big and clean, and obviously elevator and building, and of course most importantly it was within my budget. So yeah, that's just an example. And once you find the place that you love, I would say definitely have all your documents ready beforehand, because boy do these things go by fast. I've literally been to viewings where I fell in love, and on my subway ride back home to try to submit my documents, someone else had already gotten it. Like, that's how fast some of these places go sometimes, and so it definitely helps to have all your documents ready. A lot of things that they look for is like last year's tax documents, an employment verification letter, like 2 to 3 of your recent pay stubs, like your rental payment history if you have it, driver's license, things like that. So when apartments go by so fast, you definitely don't want to waste any time trying to like find your documents for the first time, so it's better to just have them ready. And sometimes I'll also like ask for like a snapshot of bank balances just to make sure you have the monies. And a lot of times in New York, the rule is that you have to make 40 times your rent, which is insane. I don't know how people are doing that. And if you don't have that, you also need to have a guarantor, and they have to make 80 times your rent, which is insane. But yeah, just some financial things to keep in mind. And one of the last tips, which is more of a word of encouragement, is do not give up. I have been there. It seems like times are dark and you're like, I might be on the streets. I can't find an apartment. But I would say don't give up. New York City apartment hunting is not for the weak, but it always works out. I've like had time and time again where literally in the 11th hour, apartment shows up like on StreetEasy, and like the last thing I look at happens to be the one that I ended up getting. Things move very quickly, which can sometimes be very stressful, but on the flip side, it's also good for you because it means that your situation could change in a day. And so I would say don't give up, just keep on going. Everyone's been there, but it all ends up being okay. So don't get discouraged and don't get so stressed out like I did. The first time I moved, I got like a stress-induced stomach problem that ended up having to go to the freaking ER. And funnily enough, just New York City things, my ER doctor was a part-time model. And then years later, I see him on the freaking subway because he's modeling for Figs. But yeah, but this man was literally my ER doctor because I was so stressed out from the first time I ever moved to New York City. So don't be like me, it'll all be okay. And if you have any questions about apartment hunting or you want more tips, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to help answer anything. But yes, with that, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you for the next one.